Longing for rest. A talk with Unmani.
This longing for rest. Longing for rest. Often in our daily lives, in our human lives, and on this spiritual path, we are hoping, waiting, making all kinds of effort in order to find rest, right? To find peace, ease. And we're hoping for this one day when I will be able to relax back into this beautiful rest. And perhaps we've had certain experiences, whether we might consider them spiritual experiences or just, the experiences that we have in our lives when we feel that sense of beautiful, deep rest, where all the busyness and the chaos of life just stops and we can just be present with what is here. And that everything is enough. And there's this beautiful resonance when we acknowledge that now, right? As we point to that in this moment, and we might recognize that energetically, there's a kind of sense of yes, right? Because we all know that and love that. And perhaps that's even the most fundamental reason why we start the path of spirituality, where we are trying to arrive at that beautiful state of resonance and rest. And so when we might have an experience like that, we are usually trying to grasp it, or we're thinking, oh, that's it, I want more of that. But then naturally it passes, because in our human experiences, everything comes and goes, and every experience passes. That's its nature. So this deep rest that we are longing for and that we love and we deeply recognize as our true nature, this isn't a state that comes and goes. It is, in fact, our true nature, which is why when we recognize it, we feel like, yes, this is my home, actually. It's not even really a longing for that. It's a recognition of home. It's not a future state. When we really acknowledge it, we're just falling back into what we already are. The home that we never left, in fact. And perhaps in that moment, we're even realizing how much effort we have apparently been making to move away from that deep rest. Perhaps there's fear of disappearing into that, merging and melting into that, so that the separate identity dissolves, dies into that. And so there's, in a way, a longing for that, but at the same time, a terror of that. And there's this kind of push-pull that can happen. But essentially, that deep rest is always who we are. We can't move away from that. We can't forget that. We're never not that. But it seems that in our human experience, there are times when there is more experience of that, and times when there's less experience of that, or no experience of that. Because the nature of experience is that it comes and goes and changes. There's waves of this and waves of that. There's moments of recognition and moments where we seem to forget or overlook it. There's times when we are hoping to arrive there. And of course, that very hoping is where we overlook the reality of our true nature, that we are always that. So we can never arrive there because we never left there. And this hoping that happens particularly on the spiritual path, but it can happen in all areas of our lives. This hoping is a kind of mental dissatisfaction with what is. It will never be satisfied with any experience of rest. We might have a temporary experience of rest or recognition, and it passes. And then the thoughts just want more and more and more, or it wants some kind of perfect state of rest. But the reality is that actually, anytime that there is actually a sense of rest, the mind actually doesn't find that particularly interesting for this separate me. Because when we truly recognize this, as I said, there is this push-pull. So the mind says it wants that. It says, I long for that, or I hope that one day I would get there or arrive there. But at the same time, it is about the death of this separate me, the dissolution of this separate identity. And so it's kind of considered flat or boring for me. And it's much more interesting to be forever chasing some future state that never arrives. And so we're in this endless kind of running and chasing and feeling sensorially also a kind of restlessness in the body. But beyond all of that is this deep rest that you are, that never moves, that is always at rest. And the more we see that our thoughts can never arrive there, that in fact this idea of a separate me can never arrive at a state of permanent deep rest, the more we see those thoughts for what they are, the more we can resonate energetically more and more with this deep rest in our human lives. And it kind of seeps in more and more, even though it's not really an experience. Our true nature as deep rest is not an experience of deep rest. It is beyond all experience. And yet, in our human experience, the more we recognize that, the more there is a kind of relaxing back into that, identifying with that deep rest as who I really am, then the play of the human existence, the different experiences that come and go that are not always restful, we're not fooled as much by those experiences into thinking that when there is unrest, that means I'm unrest. I am the unrest, or that there's something wrong, there's a problem to fix, or I'm not there yet. We just see those experiences as passing experiences. We know that the deep rest that we are is always here. And that is the beauty and the freedom to include also discomfort, unrest, grief, and everything else, including joy and beauty and love and pleasure, and everything in between, even just ordinary, daily stuff. There is the deep rest beyond all of it.